2 minutes.
They just died? What's the name? Marilyn?
Shabbat Shalom.
Those are the only words in this prayer. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome. We welcome the O'Neill family and the Waldman family and all the extended. Anna really wants to be welcomed. She's raising her hand on the front row. Thank you, Anna, for being here. We know you drove yourself here. And we're thrilled to be able to celebrate Huey's bar mitzvah this weekend and turn to him as our teacher and our leader tomorrow morning. He'll make a couple little cameo appearances this evening, but we're thrilled for this weekend ahead and this Shabbat together. And to start, it was not planned this way, but it has worked out this way. As months ago, in talking with the O'Neill family and wondering what on earth would the world look like in early March, and we are at a time where we feel we can start to loosen some of our restrictions, and they get to have the bar mitzvah this weekend, and starting next week, as a congregation, we'll be able to have some food and celebrate Purim in your Disney costume. So that Disney costume that you've had hidden under the bed for decades, please go ahead and bring it out and come dressed as your favorite Disney or other character that you would like to be next Friday night. And we'll be able to really have our first community-wide oneg with Hamantashen and a special event. We'll talk more about that later. And I was told at the beginning of the service to mention, if you haven't watched Kylie's amazing work, and Elaine's on the Bima this evening, her incredible acting that's up for a Grammy. A Grammy? No, an Oscar. Oscar, I have to get them right. For our Purim video. There is a second Purim video coming out 1 week from today. So look for the sequel to come out next Friday. But please participate in our Purim fundraiser this year. We are excited to invite the O'Neills up to help us light candles. So if you'll make your way up, we'll turn to page 2 in our prayer books as we'll let them lead us as we begin this Shabbat and celebrate with them this weekend.
Source of
light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find our knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Blessed all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'hadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Page 10, join us in the words of Hinei Matov at the top right-hand portion of the page as we welcome everybody with these words, how nice it is to be together.
Hinei matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad.
Take a moment and reflect back on our week, on these last 7 days, the moments from last Shabbat until this moment. And as we enter this sanctuary, we make sure to affirm the sacredness of our lives. We pray that we enter this place in peace, that holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold, that weariness, doubt, and the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the week, drop away as we walk through that door. Most importantly, that the brightness of Shabbat, the sense of peace and joy settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer. Page 20, the words of Lecha Dodi, our words to welcome Shabbat into this space, into our week, for those joining us from home, into your homes as well. Page 20, please join with us.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad hishmiyanu el hameyuchad Adonai echad hu shemo echad l'shem u'tiferet v'litchila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lecha v'necha ki mekor haberecha mirosh mikadem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'mashchet v'chila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hit'oreri kiva orech שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Please rise as we welcome Shabbat in through our doors. Turn and face our entrance or the entrance to your home.
בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובסוכלה תוך אמונה סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת קהלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. We often say the Jewish people are a people who remember a lot of things. So we're going to remember something we used to do, which is celebrate birthdays here. The beginning of every month, the first Shabbat of the month, we're going to honor birthdays for the month ahead. So if you and anniversaries. So if you got married during Mardi Gras, even if your parents didn't know about it, we would like to know about it. So if you have an anniversary this month or a birthday, raise your hand. Do we have any March birthdays? Wonderful. So those who have, that's wonderful. We just missed you, Huey, right? Last week. Yeah. I think you get to stand up because it's your bar mitzvah. That counts as a birthday, right? You can stand up with your mom. So birthdays and anniversaries, please stand up. We wish you a happy birthday. I don't see any anniversaries. And we'll share in the words of Shachianu, a blessing for the goodness that you're having now, that come many, many more times in your lives, and that those who love you and your community get to celebrate it with you.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higyanu lazman hazeh. Amen.
Thank you. Mazel tov. Page 24, Shalom Aleichem. We pray that the best of this week find its way into our Shabbat. Page 24.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachi Hasharet, Malachi Eyun, Mi Melech, Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LaShalom, Malachi Hashalom, Malachi Eyun, Mi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Ni LaShalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Eyun. Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem LaShalom, Malachi HaShalom, Malachi Eyun. Mi Melech Malachi Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Please join me on the next page for Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgadol v'kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechanu v'yomechon uv'chayedecha ben Yisrael Bagala uv'izman kariv v'yimaru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'alam ul'almei amaya yitabarach יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תשבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ויאמרו Amen.
Please rise as we face east, our call to worship, as we prepare for the prayers that lead us into our Shema, page 28.
Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'id HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'id.
Remain standing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, from whom this evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. Let us take this time to acknowledge the blessing that comes with change as day turns to evening, as our week turns to Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who allows us to enter into this evening. Page 32, our prayer for love, for the people in this world, for the people around us, and for God.
Ahavat olam beit Yisrael Amecha ahavta Amcha ahavta Torah u'mitzvot Hukim u'mishpatim Otanu limadeta Otanu limadeta Akein Adonai Eloheinu v'shachbeinu V'kumeinu nasiach b'chukecha V'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed Ahavat olam beit Yisrael Amecha ahavta Amcha ahavta
Page 34 and 35, Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivud Malachuto Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. We invite Huey to lead us in the second half of the Shema, better known as the V'ahavta, page 36, this prayer that reminds us that one of the many ways in which we love our children is by teaching them. It's appropriate that he on this Shabbat lead us. Page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Please join me responsively on page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, that there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt, we were delivered at Sinai. We bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again, we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it's been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. Page 40, Mi Chamocha.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקי עולם לפני משה. זה זה אלינו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא.
We know we cannot take for granted the fact that as we end our days and return to our homes, that often we find that there are those in the world who don't have a sense of peace that we do, a sense of protection that we do. And sometimes those vulnerable people are, in fact, us. And so for the moments when we can come to the end of our day knowing that we're healthy, knowing that we're safe, knowing that we're among those that we love, we don't take it for granted. The words on page 42 ask us to acknowledge that. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu l'shalom. God, let us find that as we find this evening, we find it with peace and shelter, protection and love. The words of Hashkivenu in song, page 42.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom L'shalom Hashkivenu Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom Ve'hamidenu Malkeinu L'chaim U'L'shalom U'L'shalom Hashkivenu Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom Ushmur tzitenu Uvoinu L'chaim U'Shalom Me'ata ve'ad olam Ufros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Hashkivenu Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'shalom Baruch atah Adonai Haporetz Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'akol amo Yisrael ve'am Yerushalayim Hashkivenu
Page 45. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment, but it was a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We turn to our most serious prayers now, the words that begin page 46 and follow throughout the coming pages that ask us to reach back through that history that we hold on to so tightly, to remember what has happened, the people who have been a part of our story all the way back to Abraham and Sarah. And we ask that we link their story with our own as we'll conclude this part of our service in a few moments by asking you to offer your own personal, private prayers. Page 46, please stand.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Lifnei V'Nehem, Lama'an shemo be'ahava. Melech ozer umoshia umagen. Baruch atah Adonai. Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai. Mechaye hakol ata rav lehoshia. Mashiv haruach umorid hagashem. Mechokel chayim bechesed. Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim. Somech noplim verofech olim. Umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato. Lishene afar. Micha mocha ba'al gevurot. Umida melech. Melech memit umechaye. Umatzmiach Yeshua. Vene'eman ata lehachayot hakol. Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh ukdoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha sala baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Please be seated. Page 57. God, be with us in our prayer, in our love and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. Be the still clear voice within us. Therefore, God, when doubt troubles us and anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers, and we ask that we there find you and find courage and insight and endurance, so that our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadecha b'yir'ah na'avod. Page 60. Our prayer for the most overwhelming sense of peace to make its way to our world. Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki Atav Malach Adon L'chol HaShalom. Ki Atav Malach Adon L'chol HaShalom. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tatzim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tatzim Leolam. V'tov beinecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael b'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. Please take a few moments for silent meditation. Adonai Tzuri V'goali Adonai Tzuri V'goali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. You l'ratzon imre filion libi lefanecha. Adonai Tzuri V'goali Adonai Tzuri V'goali.
Shabbat Shalom. As some of you know, this past summer my family went on an extended camping trip and visited all sorts of parks all over the Northeast and New England. And a game popped up. It's amazing what games you'll come up with when you're not tempted by screens 24 hours a day. And our kids found that there was a great game of hide and seek where we would be in a big state park and they would go run off and climb some tree or go out into some field and poke their heads through just enough so that we couldn't see them with our own eyes, but if we took out our fancy cameras and took a picture, our camera would catch it, and then we'd come back later on. It was like, where's Waldo? You know, could you find each other's faces in this picture of vast forest? Can you find the three little faces hiding? And so everywhere we went, they would find a place that would be fitting, whether it was mountains of rocks or deep forests or trees they could climb. But I share it tonight because in some ways, it's a great metaphor for what much of the last few years has showed us so intensely, which is that there are so many ways now that we're aware that there are people for whom we want to see, whom we know well, but for whom the world won't let us see them. This week, a friend told me that she lost a dear cousin, someone she had known her whole life. But due to COVID and the environment and travel, that she couldn't attend the funeral that was far away. And in this case, it wasn't being live streamed. And so this person whom she had known her entire life, like a sibling, she couldn't even be there to be at his graveside. We've had this many times over these last few years, as we've come to accept that there are events in our lives that we know under normal circumstances we would say, I wouldn't miss this for the world. But the world says, you're going to have to miss this. So, how do we find a way to feel connected to a person who we may have known our whole life, but who's too far away for us to see? Sometimes, I would blame the very same tool. Sometimes they don't even have to be far away. They can just look like this, in the same house, and you don't even see them. How is it that, even without COVID, something we've struggled with for a long time, how can we stay connected to those, whether they're far away or close to us, who we have a hard time seeing? And we know distance doesn't have that much to do with it, nor does COVID. I met with a former detective of Akron Police this week as well. The same thought struck me. He's working to help law enforcement understand hate crimes, specifically looking at how hate crimes function in different ethnic and religious groups. So he met with me because he knows, as a black man and a former police officer, that he doesn't know what it feels like to be Jewish. We talked for a while, and as he told his stories, it was a reminder that the feeling is mutual. We both live in Akron. We both worry about hate crimes, especially ones that hurt people who look like us and pray like us. And yet, I don't know what it feels like to be a black man in Akron at all. He doesn't know what it feels like to be a Jewish man in Akron. So how do we find a way to be connected to someone who lives right next to us, who we can see but who we don't recognize? And finally, as we look at this continuing war in Ukraine, and I know we all want to feel connected to those people who are halfway across the world, and who, even if we did see them, we more than likely wouldn't know who they are. It seems to me that much of what we're doing today is trying to figure out how to be close with people who are far from us, either in their life experience, their location, or both. A favorite story of mine from my former synagogue, which, like this synagogue, built a new building just a few years ago. And one of the lead gifts was from a family who had a love of art and who had more art than they knew what to do with. So they created a beautiful outdoor courtyard. It was a sculpture garden that you could see from almost anywhere in the building. And like moving into a new home, which I imagine many of us have done, it sometimes takes a while for things to get up on the wall and furniture to get in the right place, but the sculpture garden was there first. And so every day I would walk to my office and I would see this beautiful sculpture garden through the window. And on nice days, I'd walk outside and enjoy looking at the pieces of art, not knowing who the artists were or what their intended purpose was. And as you would walk down this pathway and get to the centerpiece, clearly where everything was leading you, there was this one 4x4 piece of metal sitting there, waiting for a sculpture to be placed on it. And I waited for months, and I walked by it for months, and eventually about a year goes by, and I went to the executive director, who was also the knower of everything. I said, when is that last sculpture going to get there? We've had everything put up on the walls, all the furniture's in place. We've been looking at every other sculpture the entire time since the day we moved into this building. Is it ever going to arrive? And he laughed at me. He said, Josh, the little black square that's 4 feet by 4 feet that's 2 inches off the ground, that's the sculpture. Nothing else is coming. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And so I went back out and for the first time looked at this piece of art as a piece of art. And I took our students out there because it quickly became a favorite. I would ask the students to stand around and ask them what the sculpture was. And they would laugh as if I was pulling their leg. There is no sculpture. For me, this was the best way to understand God from a Jewish perspective. Standing around this 4x4 square, the students looked at each other. And then I would read Genesis chapter 1, verse 27. God created humankind in the divine image. Creating it in the image of God, God created male and female. Since the beginning of our tradition, we've been challenged with trying to see what we cannot see, with trying to be close to something, to some being greater than ourselves that we couldn't imagine, that we didn't really know personally. And the Torah starts in the very first chapter by telling us to look at each other. For we will feel closer to what we cannot see and do not know if we find that what we are looking for is familiar. Last week, I mentioned that there were a few rabbis who I did not know personally, but who at least we could feel a relation to, who were stuck in Ukraine. This week, an article came out listing Jewish people we know, not personally, but we know who they are, but we may not have known they were from Ukraine. The list includes the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidic Judaism, Golda Meir, the prime minister of Israel, who prior to being an American citizen was born in Kyiv. Actor Mila Kunis, am I pronouncing her name correctly? Mila, see? I knew somebody would know. Natan Sharansky, the face of the Refusnik movement, Chaim Nachman Bialik, one of the great Hebrew poets, along with great Zionists, Ahat Ha'am, Zev Jabotinsky, who have any number of streets named after them in Israel. All of these people whom we would say we are familiar with, that perhaps we would say we know because we've studied them, we've been impacted by them, we've watched them on TV, we've bragged about their accomplishments. They at one point were Ukrainians. The list is not important because it has Jewish names on it. It's important because when we want to be close to someone or something that we can't see, that's far from us, one of the best tools to get us there is to see our faces, familiar faces, in those that we don't recognize. It worked in the Bible, telling the people, look at each other. It worked with teenagers around a 4x4 sculpture that had no sculpture. And it works when we read an article or hear names of people who are facing war across the world, and we recognize those faces as people who have had an impact on our life. This week, as Huey will share tomorrow, we're reading all about the tabernacle. He's going to teach us all about it, so pay attention in the morning. It's the tent that the Israelites set up in the wilderness for God to dwell in. We're in the book of Exodus now. We're at the very end, in fact. In Genesis, God said, look at each other. But in Exodus, it changes. God said, if you want to see me, build something to put where I can't be seen. So if we want to know someone we've never seen, we look at other people. Perhaps if there's someone who we do know, but we can't reach them because they're too far away. By this point in the Bible, in Torah, the people know God. God helped them out of Egypt. God has been communicating through Abraham and then Moses. They know each other. They don't always like each other, but they know each other. God says, you know me now, but you can't see me, so build a structure so that you can be reminded of our relationship. Earlier this week, Ukrainian president called upon his Jewish background to try to bring us closer to his country, and he pulled upon this very theme. This year, just this last week, 2022, the Russian army bombed a radio tower. It just happens that the tower was on the same site as the Babi Yar massacre. In 1941, the Nazis killed 33,000 Jews in 2 days on that very site. At the time, they were fighting the Russians. The irony was not lost on President Zelensky. He said to the world, what is the point of saying never again for 80 years if the world stays silent when a bomb drops on the same site of Babi Yar? He called upon one of the great tools of our tradition. In that place, a place that is now a memorial, Zelensky knew we would remember. We know those people. Whether we were related to any of those 33,000 people or not, he knows that out there in the world, there is a community and many others who join with us who will refuse to forget the people we knew who we lost a century ago. And he knows that that space keeps their memory. The memory of those whom we knew in a memorial. But we can't see them any longer, but we know them. So he called upon that great power, saying, you can't let this sacred space be a place that is bombed again. So finally, what do we do when it's not someone who we knew and it's not someone far away? This week's portion is the last chapters of Exodus. Next week, we begin with the words of Leviticus. They begin with these words, Vayikra el Moshe, daber el bnei Yisrael. And God spoke to Moses, and Moses spoke to the Israelites. When we don't know someone and when we can't see them, but we want to find a way to connect with them, we close our eyes and perhaps just listen. Yesterday, a friend posted a video on Facebook. It was a picture of a group of families huddled in the basement of their apartment complex, clearly in the Ukraine. It's It's a picture that now I, along with you, have seen dozens of times. But when I clicked on the video, the sound was of the family singing Shalom Aleichem, which we sang just a few minutes ago, because they were having Shabbat in the basement of this apartment. I didn't need to see them. I didn't need to know how far away they were. I didn't need to know if I recognized them or didn't. All I had to do was hear what they were saying, and I knew that we had a connection. When we have no face to recall, no shared geography, listening to what other people's experiences are and finding the connection to our own, it makes the world incredibly small. It makes a basement in Ukraine feel like a sanctuary in Akron. And yet, for all of time, we might say we've struggled with how far we are from people, how easily distanced. But we have the tools to bridge those gaps. We've always had those tools. As we look across the world and across our city, I pray that we keep these tools, the ones given to us in our sacred text, close at hand. That we, as we move out of this, I won't say pandemic, chapter of this pandemic, that we remember how to use these tools more often, because some of the distance we've experienced has made them less frequent in our lives. Find ways to see each other more, hear each other more, to find how someone living in our city whose experience is different than ours can be shared, so that we can feel close to those we know well, who are distanced from us, so that we can understand the pain and suffering across a sea that we know is of our concern, so that we can find that there are bridges that we can build easily with tools we've always had. May we find our way across that bridge with no fear. May we find that it brings us closer to those who need our help, and that they are close for us when we need theirs. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, and may we make it our own. We'll do just that now as we listen to the names and the words that ask us to turn our thoughts and prayers towards those who are in need of healing. Page 253, the words of Misha Berach in our prayer book. We'll invite you in the midst of this prayer to share any names of those who are in need of healing this week.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor Habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen.
If there's a name you'd like to share, please share it as I look around the room.
Reed Wasserstrom and the people of Ukraine. Misha Berach Imotenu Mekor Habracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with Refuah Shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Page 282, please rise for Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tekedu la liotzer reshit, shelo asanu kegoyei harotot, velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gorale העולם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We turn now to those who've departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. This week, we recall those that we've lost in the past month in our community. Dennis Schindler, Marilyn Cummings, Rita Wallman Stern, Dr. Richard Lieberman, Sal Giglio, and Francine Wasserstrom. We add to their names those that we lost at this season in years past: Irene Alexander, Sandra L. Allison, Baruch Bricklin, Eleanor Chatkin, Dolores Cohen, Joy W. Corman, Dr. Henry H. Fladden, Lillian Friedman, Gail Frost, Herman B. Harris, Evelyn Odom Hilton, Bernard Hirsch, Harriet Isroff, Helen A. Katz, Irving K., Albert Kondritzer, Tilly B. Lando, Dr. Norman Leeds, Jerry Lippman, David Lakshan, Ratko Mirik, Milton Munitz, Rosalind Salvit Novak, Abraham Polsky, Rose Sarah Radwani, Albert Reven, Bernard Salvit, Elaine G. Schoenberger, Alberta Schwartz, Clarence Siegel, Alex Schulman, Thelma Tybee Sweedler, Jack Waldman, and Joseph E. West. If there are names that I mispronounced or names you'd like to share, please add them. Please rise, page 294. Share the words of Mourner's Kaddish, honoring those that we've loved and lost. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayed dechol Beit Yisrael, B'agala uvizman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam almei almaya, Yit barak v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudasha b'richu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechamata, Ta'amiran be'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, B'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, huya asei shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Having connected with those that we've loved and lost, we connect with each other as we bless each other with the words of the priests, page 299. May God bless you and keep you. May God's light shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May you feel God's presence within you always, and may you find peace. We invite the, please stay standing. We'll invite the O'Neills back up to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi as we bless this Sabbath evening. If you'll raise the glass and share the words on the page. Page 4 and 5 in your prayer books if you want to follow along.
The heaven and the earth were finished, and all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing. And God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of creation that God has done. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodesho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maasim v'reishit, ki hu yom techilah l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'charta miotanu kidashta mikohanim v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchatanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat. Amen.
You can drink from the cup if you'd like. And Anna, maybe you wanna see if there's like a raccoon under that, or if it's a challah. Will you look? It's a challah. Can you uncover it for us?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
All right, Paul, you're allowed to take the challah. The Waldman O'Neill family gets the challah for the evening. You can take it, Paul. Go ahead.
So excited.
It's all yours. It's nice if you share it with your siblings, but you can take it back. Please be seated. We'll invite our one of our co-presidents, Elaine Newman, to share a couple brief announcements.
Shabbat Shalom. Mazel Tov to the O'Neill Waldman family, and I can't wait for tomorrow. I think we're going to have like 2 bar mitzvahs because I've been watching the youngest all night. So, Mazel Tov. Next Friday is Purim Rock Shabbat. Come dressed as your favorite Disney character, or just come dressed up. We'll have an oneg afterwards, and we really look forward to having you all stay around and socialize so we can finally be together again. The Interfaith Justice Alliance series starts on Wednesday, March 9th at 6 p.m. Please sign up. Registration can be found in our weekly email. And if you can't get our weekly email, there were many calls coming into the office today. You can call. Our religious school is selling Passover candy. Please see that online or in the weekly emails also, but I also think they're going to be at the Purim Carnival selling it. Shabbat Shalom.
We'll close with the words of Gesher Tzar Meod. May we find that the narrow bridge that we see in the world is one that we can cross with courage and find the connections that we seek. Please rise. It's page 339 in the prayer books if you want to follow along. Shabbat Shalom to everybody, and Mazel Tov once again to the O'Neill family.
Kol haolam kulo, Gesher Tzar Meod, Gesher Tzar Meod, Gesher Tzar Meod, Kol haolam kulo, Gesher Tzar Meod, Gesher Tzar Meod.
Clapping is encouraged.
לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר, לא לפחד, לא לפחד כלל, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל. The whole entire world is a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge, a very narrow bridge. The whole entire world is a very narrow bridge, very narrow bridge. And the main thing we recall is have no fear at all. And the main thing that we recall is have no fear at all. Kol haolam kulo, Gesher Tzar Meod, Gesher Tzar Meod, Gesher Tzar Meod. Kol haolam kulo, Gesher Tsar Meod, Gesher Tsar Meod. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.